All right, I'm Tim from the Register, and I'm here with Mark Peters of Iola City Council. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Thank you for being here.
No problem. Nice rainy day to begin doing something.
Yeah, good day to be indoors, right?
Yep.
It's been a weird rainy week, actually. The whole week's been this way.
Yeah, I thought we were supposed to get some last weekend, but we didn't get it till Monday, but
Mm-hmm.
we got it.
Mm-hmm.
Got a heavy rain then, but this is good soaker rain.
Yeah, yeah,
It'll do the gardens good.
it will. Well, I appreciate you making the time to be here today. I wanted to reach out to you because, well, I've spoken with Jeremiah and then I've also spoken with Doug. And so I figured I'd touch base with you because the three of you are the newest class of city council members for Iola. You were all sworn in this January.
Well, I'm part of the old and the new. Yeah.
And that's part of the reason I think you're probably the most curious or interesting of the three. Not to any disrespect to them, but you've been on city council before.
Yes, I served about 1.5 terms. I left in April of 24 for a little bit, and then I decided to come back. I wanted to see what was going on.
Well, if I remember correctly, at that point, you resigned because your late wife was ill at that point.
Yes, she was on dialysis and kidney failure. And so I decided that I needed some time away, take care of her. So that's what I did,
Yeah.
And I wanted to give them time to get somebody in there to help them to work with them on budget time. So that's why I left in April, so they would have plenty of time to get somebody in and jump right in on the budget, because that's always the interesting part of the year.
Yeah. The most, all the big decisions get made. You kind of plan priorities, and also it's a tough. There's always competing priorities, when it comes to budgets.
Well, we've got great department heads, and we've got some good people to work with there, but everybody has got it's top priority for whatever they need,
Yeah.
But I think sooner or later we're going to it's going to get tight.
Yeah.
A lot of cities are starting to see that now, and we kind of had a scare here a few weeks ago when that House bill, was it 2043, came up, where they were going to, if property values went up more than 3%, you had to put it to a vote.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really going to put a crunch on cities and counties. So, yeah.
And if I remember correctly, didn't Kelly veto that?
She vetoed it, but, if she's not running again, she's,
Who knows what a new administration could do? They could actually, there's been enough rumblings where they could set that as a priority.
They could reintroduce it, and it could be worse. I know, like my older brother is on the board at Neosho County College, and he said they've been asked not to raise any mill levy to work within this year's budget, for next year. And there's a lot of cities that are getting to be that way.
Yeah. And what that inevitably means, if you've got limited budgets, is your costs are always going to increase. So that means you have to reduce services, right? Doesn't it?
Well, it's hard to reduce services in a sense, because we still got 100 miles of electric lines here in Iola. We've got gas lines. We've got water lines. Yes, we're shrinking, and we have less people to pay for it. And that's the biggest problem we have. I was looking the other day. I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. And when I was born in 49, so in 1950 census, Iola had over 7,000 population, almost 7,500.
Sure.
And now we're at 5,200.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at every 10 years of census that came out, we have decreased except for 1980. Yeah. And in that year, it was the only time we had an increase. And the reason why was
Gates Manufacturing,
Berg. Klein Tools over at Moran. Allen County went up.
Yep. Midland Brake was here. There were a lot of what was
Berg.
Yeah. You're right. There was a manufacturing boom in the 70s.
In the mid-70s. Yeah.
Other than that, ever since Iola has been at its peak, or Allen County, or really rural Kansas, it's been, this is not it's tough because this isn't just an Iola problem. This is a rural America problem, right? Rural America really isn't growing.
Well, it is, and it's due to a lot of different reasons. It's like I came from a medium-sized family for 8 kids.
Mm-hmm.
My wife had a small family. There were 6 kids in her family.
Did you just say medium-sized?
At that time, it was.
Yeah.
You take back in the 20s, the 30s, 40s, 50s. There was 6, 8, 10 kids per family. And we were able to make it, and we lived. I mean, we didn't know we were in poverty at the time,
right.
but we got good education. And okay, out of 8 kids, there was only like 3 of us that stayed here in this area. The rest of them moved on, And in each one of them, when we got married, we each had 2 kids.
Yep.
So there's your, a good reason why the population has declined.
Sure. I was reading a similar article about public school population and how it's a demographic issue. It's, sure that there is a rise of private schools and homeschools, and that is part of the reasoning or the explanation. But a lot of it, a bigger part of it is families are just smaller these days, and with less public school students or fewer enrolled, budgets are tighter. And so what you were kind of saying earlier there is that 2 generations ago, Iola had a much bigger pie to a much bigger pool to fund the city. The taxpayer base was larger. And now as you look at the city and the population, what worries you about a shrinking Iola?
Keeping the streets up, keeping our infrastructure up and going, Iola in a physical sense has not shrunk, but the population has.
Right. So we've still got to maintain all of the infrastructure.
We have to maintain the streets, the lights, the water, and keep them up. And, that's what people expect. They want to, when they hit that switch on, by the doorway, they want the lights to come on, they want the water when they turn the tap on, and all that takes money.
Yeah.
And it's more and more expensive all the time, I mean, I don't know what a fire truck cost back in my day, probably $10,000. Now they're $350,000, $400,000, $500,000 for a good fire truck.
Yeah. Michael Burnett said the same thing about that when we had an article. Reporter Sarah interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and he remarked at how expensive the budget for equipment and just vehicles for the EMS department is just ballooned.
Yeah, I watched I used to go to the county meetings, but I haven't been to one in a while, but I listened to them. And I know here this last Tuesday, they were talking about, Mr. Lee and Daniels and Mr. Brocker were all talking about they were wanting to put a 50-cent sales tax out there. And because when they first took over the EMS situation, there was less than $1 million, $750,000. Now they say it's getting close to $3 million to operate that.
Yeah, and that's a rehash of a proposal that was narrowly defeated in 2024.
Right.
Something that just 2 years ago voters weighed in on.
And I think if we're going to keep the service that we've got, and that's it. When you call 911 and you need an ambulance, you want one there.
Yeah.
And right now we've got a great system, and to keep it going, we may have to, I'd say go for the sales tax because, like Mr. Lee said, go out to Walmart, you see Anderson County plates, Woodson County plates, Bourbon County plates out there. Anybody driving through town here is going to stop at the restaurant or at the convenience store or something. We can collect that, and it'll grow that way. And with the new state park coming in, hopefully we can get some, influx from there, from people coming into town and buying stuff.
How does it? Well, I guess maybe I'll back up a little bit. And you were off the council, and so you came back. So what were some of your decisions motivating you to want to return? What did you want to see accomplished, or what did you want to be a part of? What kind of motivated you to step back in?
Well, one of it was kind of comical in a sense, but I ran into one of the councilmen, and he said, "Were your ears burning the other night?" And I said, "No, why?" And he said, your name came up at the council meeting. I said, "Oh, what about?" And he said, "Well, we had a budget hearing And we got through with it in 20 minutes. And somebody said, that's the fastest we've ever been through a budget meeting. And he said, yeah, it's because Mark wasn't here to ask questions, And I'm kind of known for asking questions when it comes, if it's got numbers involved in it. And I'm not against what they're asking for. I'm asking them to justify why they need it,
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to ask, do you need a new dump truck? How many hours does the old one have on it? And if they can justify it, I have no problem, getting that for them,
Mm-hmm.
or if they want to upgrade something and make it easier and get their job done, that's great, but
Mm-hmm.
that was part of the reason why I tried to get back on. But there's some things I want to see get done also, like this new park coming in. I'd like to see a bike route coming up Washington Street here,
Mm-hmm.
Somehow. And maybe, talk to this empty lot we have across the street here. If we can
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
make a bike stop there where people can leave their bike,
Mm-hmm.
have some lockers there where they can leave their helmets in it,
Mm-hmm.
lock them up, and maybe even run electricity to it if they got an e-bike, to
Mm-hmm.
where they can plug their bike in, and get it charged before they head back. And I'm sure that the chamber's working on making out some brochures or maps that they're going to have at the visitor center. But we need a kiosk down here by the bridge,
Right.
Showing people where's the restaurants at, where's the shopping at,
Mm-hmm.
get them in here,
Mm-hmm.
because I think the people that are going to be coming to this lake are going to be people that are going to be using the rail trails.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be people bringing the speedboat in and going skiing because the lake's not that big.
Right.
They
Correct.
can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be bicycling. They're going to be out walking, and we need to somehow draw them into here.
So you see this state park as a real opportunity for economic development then?
It is. It's going to bring people, and if they, if we get a couple hundred people every weekend coming to it, that's just like having a couple of hundred more people living here, except
Right.
we won't see them during the week.
Right. But they'll need to eat. They'll need to buy supplies. They want to buy charcoal. They probably want to buy some food. They want to buy a life jacket. They might want to even buy a kayak paddle.
Or they might get tired and not want to cook, so they want to come in town and eat.
Especially if it's raining.
Yes.
They'll need all sorts of supplies. They'll need to buy. We were out at Council Grove last summer, and we thought we had packed everything, but inevitably you realize you forget the lighter fluid. You realize, and then when you stop in there, you say, hey, what? We should get some sparklers for the kids, or you say, hey, let's do s'mores tonight. And what you had imagined just one thing, then you buy 15 things, and all of that money is going to stay in the community.
I know when my kids were small, my wife and I, and my two kids, we would take off. We went to Farlington and John Redmond and Toronto, and we went to all the lakes around there, Big Hill, and like you said, we always had to run into town to get something.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a boom.
Yeah.
It might be just as good as having a business here, for bringing people in.
Sure. Well, I'm sure it can. If we do this the right way, I have the hopes, and I think a lot of people do, that this can really sustain businesses, that this can add some extra volume to them and really maybe even diversify our retail base here, what we offer, and bring in, maybe give rise to a couple new businesses that meet that need of people coming to the state park.
I don't think we'll ever see any big manufacturing here like, when we had Gates and those places, because we just don't have the people to keep them open and keep them running.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have like you always want your kids to do better than you did, so when you get them through school and into college and on through, they're not coming back here. There's nothing to draw them back here. They're used to the, Lawrence and Topeka or Kansas City or, Colorado or someplace. So they're moving on, and I wish there was some business that we could come up with where we could draw some of them back here, and keep them here.
So I'm hearing a focus on what sounds to me like maybe fiscal discipline, or really making sure that the city is keeping track of its expenses, being careful about its expenses, because you see a declining population as a concern where revenues aren't going to drastically increase for the city. So we've got to make sure that our expenses are in check with our revenues. And I'm hearing a focus on economic development, especially with the park. You're seeing that as an opportunity.
With the park and and if we can get some small businesses in, like this data center, I was concerned about it because everything I've read on them is that people don't want them because they're noisy.
Sure.
But being out there in the industrial park where it's at, I don't think we'll have a problem there. And it's not going to hit us on utilities. In fact, with Gates, winding down, this will pick up what we were selling to them. So it's a win-win, on the utility things. Now, if they want to expand and put another one in or so, we might have to upgrade the substation out there. But other than that, they're money makers.
We have fixed costs as a city with our utilities, and we need utility customers.
Yes.
And that's what I hear you saying is Gates and Russell Stover are major customers for the city. They are, a lot of our budget for a city comes from selling of our electricity.
Well, that's what Chanute did. They did away with their city property tax, and they support everything off of their utility base.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're not making enough money, that means you got to raise your utility rates. And how long can people, make do with that?
Yeah, I'm wondering. We've heard quite a few comments. I'm wondering if they might wish they could go back in time on that. All right. Anything else that kind of said, you know what? I want to throw my hat back in the ring and run.
No, I
must enjoy it. Yeah. What do you enjoy about it?
Just, being in the know and making a difference, but, like when I was on before, we was going to get the water tower painted. And I asked Toby Ross about it. I said, when was the last time you were up there? And he said, I've never climbed one of those, And so when they got up there and was painting it, they found out that we had some rafters on the inside that were, about ready to fail. So it cost us a little bit more, but we were able to get them fixed. Well, I noticed doing some research on the company that they had a preventive maintenance program where they come in with underwater cameras and they inspect that every year.
Wow. And
so I talked to Toby about it, and we got them to, sign a contract with them where now they come in and inspect our stuff, Mm-hmm. So I'm not, trying to say I was against them painting the water towers. I'm saying we need to do some preventive maintenance to keep these water towers in shape.
Sure.
So we're not replacing them,
yeah.
Down the road.
Yeah.
And so we've got two of them, painted and rebuilt now. And we still got the one out here by Gates that we're going to be doing next,
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you some questions. Just, you're retired, but before you were out at Gates Corporation for a long time. And before that, you were with the city. Is
Yes.
that true?
Mm-hmm.
And what did you do for the city of Iola?
I was on the police department.
Okay. And what was your role at Gates?
Jack of all trades and master of none. I started out in pole belt, running a machine. Then I transferred to back with maintenance and ran inventory on the crib. And then I was pulled out of there and put in the IT department because I've always had a fascination with computers. Don't ask me how to program them.
Yeah.
I can tell you if it's not working, drop it a couple of times. It'll work. It'll fix it. But the thing I found was that, I made up the manuals for to train people with, and I did the training, and which gave me a chance to travel with Gates because the guys from Denver that came to install the software and everything liked the manuals I made, so I got to go to different Gates plants with them, and this was the where we tried everything out at was in Iola, but then we went to Siloam Springs and Charleston, Missouri, and Poplar Bluff and Boone, Iowa, and every place to install this. And so I got to go and help them install it and do the training. And then I was working with Ken Hart, our purchasing agent out here, and he was having a hard time figuring out the new programming and stuff. So one day he just came in and said, I'm not I can't do this. He says, just stressing me out. So he said, I'm going back to the floor. So asked me to fill in on purchasing. I said, I don't know anything about purchasing. I know the program, but I don't know. And long story short, about 8 years in there, working in purchasing and everything.
How do you think those experiences informed your approach to being on the council and how you make decisions and how you want local government to work? Do you feel like that experience enriches your approach in any way?
Oh, we had budgets out there, and we had, different places where the money had to go. And I mean, just like Denver would come up and say, okay, we're guaranteeing our stockholders 10% this year. Mm-hmm. You guys figure out how to do it. And we said, we'll raise the price of hose. And they go, no, we're not raising the price of hose. You guys got to find some cost cuts, Hmm. And so that made me, figure out, okay, where can we cut,
Yeah.
We started watching scrap rates really close. We watched, okay, if I can buy my cardboard from this company and it's costing me $1 a box, but I can buy it from this guy for 83 cents a box. Well, now we got to, switch over if it's the same stuff, if it meets our standards. And it made me look at things a lot closer.
Do you see, well, I kind of wanted to ask this a different way, but let me go ahead and ask it. Do you see things that Iola City Council needs to think about cutting when you look at, down the road and you say, hey, you know what? Times are going to get tight. These are some things that we might consider. Is that something you don't like to think about, or?
We've talked about it. I know years ago it has come up a couple of times, especially around budget time, and we thought about, could we do with less employees, but don't lay anybody off or anything, but just through attrition. Them. Right. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of, places that, we might be able to get by with that. But when it comes down to it, do you want to do with, okay, we've got 6 or 7 guys on our electric department. It's hard to cut 1 or 2 out of there, especially if you got a storm coming up. Mm-hmm. When you get stormy weather and you get tree limbs down and stuff, that, you want your electric back on as quick as possible,
Yeah.
And we've done some, I know they've done some consolidation where or we've had some department heads that retired, and some of the other department heads have, taken over that position.
Just because personnel is so expensive, is that just, the easiest?
It's your biggest budget line is,
As with most businesses,
know,
it's always about the people. That's always your biggest investment.
Yeah. And it's hard to tell them, well, no raises this year, because, you've got to, we were losing, not losing, but we had people that were quitting, especially electricians, and going to work for, Heartland out here or, different places.
Other municipalities. Yeah. Because they can make a lot more money elsewhere.
Yeah. And, and I've seen that clear back when I started on the police department in the 80s. We always kidded around that. Humboldt was our training ground because they would hire somebody, send them off to the academy, then we would hire them up here because we paid better, and we didn't have the expense of, And finally, Humboldt wisened up and had them sign a 2-year contract. So we had to wait 2 years before we could steal them.
Slowed it down, but it didn't stop it.
But, and that's what, you can't blame people that they've got to make a living. They've got to go out and pay bills. And so
it's funny, you think about a city and there's a lot of things the city does that don't generate money. Like the pools, the libraries, lots of things.
Street and alley,
that you do just because spraying for mosquitoes. There's lots of things that a city does just to help have provide citizens with quality of life issues. You want to have a well-kept parks and rec department. You want the cemeteries to have their grass cut when you go to them. You want the library to have books when you walk in it. You want the streets to be clean and the lights to be on in the alleys. I guess the other part of this is when you look at the future of Iola, what I noted earlier was almost a little bit of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but a little bit of concern about our future. if we're losing people, if our young people don't see any reason to come back and they're going to the Lawrences and the Topekas and the Kansas Cities and Colorados, as you said, how do we not only keep people here, but attract people to come here? I mean, how do we maintain some sort of community here? Or are we just destined to be a community that kind of peters out, and the light just kind of flickers off?
Well, I don't know. I don't have a quick answer for it, because we're not only losing our younger people, but we're also losing some of, maybe not a big majority, but some of our older people that are reaching retirement are now moving closer to the grandkids, which might be, out of state or away from here, because instead of them, the kids and the grandkids coming here to see grandma and grandpa, grandma and grandpa are going there,
Or I think about Clyde and Nancy Toland, who moved to an assisted living facility that met their needs up in Lawrence because there wasn't one around here. There just wasn't the type of facility that they were looking for. And they wanted to stay in Iola. I remember talking with Clyde, and he grew up on the same block that he was living on. And this was his home. But that was such it's really stuck with me, that the story of that couple where they felt almost like they were forced out a little bit.
And, and we don't have the assisted, care like we used to, we used to have 4 or 5 of them around here. Now we've got 2, 3,
got Medical Lodges, Greystone, Heartland Meadows. And then Humboldt has Arrowwood.
Right. And, so, and they're probably full up, but there's a lot of people that are trying to make it at home. I deliver Meals on Wheels and got a great bunch of people. And when I first started it, right after I retired, my wife and I did it. We had anywhere from 20, 25 people, and now I'm doing 9. But a lot of them, that are still living at home by themselves. And, if you look at a breakdown of the population of Iola, almost 25% of them are over 65.
Yeah.
That's a lot of homes that people are living in that, are getting up there in the years, like myself, in another 10 years, my house is going to be coming up for sale, where all these people that are living at home alone, are they going to move in with their son or their daughter or something and move away from here? And then that house is coming open.
Do you see any maybe quick is the wrong word, but any opportunities to really move the needle? Some things that maybe not just at the city council level, but just as a region, as a county, as a city, as a community, some things that we really need to focus on if we want to kind of reverse some of these trends you're talking about?
I think a big one would be, I'd like to see the schools and the college look more closely at training, in the sense of, somebody, I keep hearing everywhere you go, whether it's Pittsburgh, Parsons, or Iola, or wherever, we don't have any housing. But, I was looking at realtor.com this morning. We got 44 homes here for sale in Iola this morning. And we got close to 90 in Allen County. Some of them is farm ground, but there's a lot of houses for sale. But I was listening to somebody talk about it, and they said that we don't really have a housing problem. We have a plumbing electrician problem. We don't have anybody to fix up these homes. You look at how many plumbers do we have here in Iola?
Yeah. Anderson and Sinclair's doing a little bit of work, and DNR a little bit, but not very many. No. Not enough, I guess, is the right answer.
Right. Actually, the only one is Anderson. The others are just, doing it however they can, and electricians are the same way. HVAC, we got 3 places here in town you can get an air conditioner from, but you only got 1 place you can go get plumbing from, so.
Yeah. Well, I remember talking with Kenny about that a couple years ago, Kenny Anderson, and he said he was tired of taking on, he basically made the point that he was tired of training people, because every time he did, he put 6 to 12 months into training them. And then as soon as he felt like they were trained up and ready to go, they'd move to Kansas City and make $80 to $100 an hour. So much more that he was able to pay them.
Yeah.
And it's just a simple economics issue,
Yeah.
I don't know how to solve that. That's a tough one.
It is. And, speaking of which, my grandson, one of his classmates went into the Army, and he trained as a diesel mechanic, and he got out about a year ago. He couldn't find a job around here, so he's going to Kansas City as a diesel mechanic,
Mm-hmm.
And we surely ought to have a place where we could get him to stay here and work,
Yeah.
But
yeah, there's some causes for concern, I think, right?
It is.
Yeah. Well, where'd you grow up again?
I was born and raised here.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, I'm just wondering how we get people to stick around or to come. And I don't always like the answer of, well, it's about lower taxes, because as you're saying,
it's this way all through Kansas.
Yeah.
I've got relatives in western Kansas. I've got, my granddaughter lives up at Wamego, and, my son lives up north of Topeka, and they're all, complaining about taxes. And I don't know what the quick answer on that is. And where my son lives up there north of Topeka, called Soldier Township, they just approved a new fire station. And we're talking about getting one here. But the one they're putting in up there is a 5-bay with training classrooms and places for them to sleep at, $12 million.
Yeah.
Now, where are we going to get $12 million to build a firehouse?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we probably, if we could add on to this one, but
I wanted to ask you about the issue of recycling. You were one of the few votes against the recycling situation. It's hard to kind of summarize what's going on, because it seems like the city and the county and the recycling group just need to sit down and have a come to Jesus where they can all get on the same page, because it seems like everybody's on a different one. But kind of explain to me what your reason for voting against the recycling situation is right now.
Back up a little bit. I've been recycling for over 30 years. I was in the Lions Club, and that's when we collected newspapers and magazines. And we'd pick up one, maybe two pickup loads every first Saturday of every month, So I've been in recycling for forever. And I believe in recycling. I think it is. But the way that we're going about it is it's a waste, in the sense of, okay, Pittsburgh had recycling. They closed their recycling plant down. Douglas County closed theirs down. I can name you probably a half a dozen places that have closed theirs down since the first of the year, because there's no money in it. This is a service that, you're going to have to tax the people to pay for, because you're not going to make any money off of it. And then the way I looked at it was, I'm not against recycling at all. But the way the county was going to go about and the city was going to go about it was inefficient. Mm. You've got a place out east of town where you can take cardboard, newspaper, plastics, glass, whatever, and they'll bale it there. What's the county and the city want to do? They want to move it over to the west side, buy some shipping containers, throw the cardboard in there loose, and then once you get a shipping container full, load it onto a trailer, and then try to get Burlington or somebody to take it and bale it. Mm-hmm. You're talking 10, 15,000 pounds onto a semi-trailer and 4 people loading it, whereas over here they're doing it and you can get 40,000 pounds on a truckload if you bale it.
Yeah.
So
I was wondering why they aren't taking better advantage of the group that's already out there on
and
East
that's
Street.
What the group out there, Mr. Strickler and Mr. Davis, are wanting. They're wanting away from it. I helped them years ago, when I was younger, at loading those things and everything. And some of my concerns with that was those containers that they have weigh about 50 pounds. Mm-hmm. Well, we've got a weight limit on our employees on what they can lift. It's 100 pounds, but still, how much cardboard you throw in there, and then it gets rained on and gets wet, then you need something like a skid steer to pick them up and load on the trailers.
Yeah. No, I know. The issue of recycling for me, it's one of those things that you're talking about when you say kids move away, and they move away and they move to communities where recycling is provided by the city. It's a service that's contracted, and recycling is just part of life. I had some family visit from California, and they felt like we were in the Stone Ages because they were throwing everything into the trash. And they said, wait, you don't have any recycling? And I said, well, we can take it out there, but no, we don't have any citywide service, countywide service. And they looked at me cross-eyed, and those are the types of things that I think give Iola and this part of the country a bad name, where people feel like, oh, well, they don't even recycle. They can't even get their heads around recycling services. So I guess I'm wondering, what's the solution for you? What do you think we should do? Because we've been talking about this for darn near 2 years, it seems like.
Well, the pie in the sky, would be, and it would cost, but if you're going to get, one of their things that they bring up is that you're going to save room in the landfill. Mm-hmm. You're not going to save anything in the landfill, because I did a study on it and I researched it. We have between 70 to 100,000 tons of stuff going into there. So if you take a truckload, which is, 40,000 pounds, 20 ton, and you have a truckload every month that you're collecting, you're doing about 1/3 of 1% of what we're throwing away out there.
Well, what do you think we should do? Do you think we should just leave it as a volunteer group? I worry that volunteer group's about burnt out.
They are. They're getting up there.
So I'm just wondering what the answer is.
If we had somebody like Wolf Creek, the way I went and visited Burlington, and the way they did it was they first came out and said, we're going to ask everybody to pay $5 to throw their stuff away. They couldn't get anybody to do it. So they raised enough tax money off of Wolf Creek, which we need to get them to move here. But anyways, and then what they did was they have 4 full-time employees, and they have I'm going to say 50 by 100 square foot building. And what they do is, and they've got an enclosed trailer with a truck pulling it, and they drive up and down the streets, and they do Leroy and Burlington and all the cities up there in Coffee County. And they have certain days, and they have totes, and the people just throw their newspapers and plastic and everything in that tote. And they drive down the alleys, and they'll take it and they'll toss it in this enclosed trailer. And there's a guy in there who sorts it. And the guy's walking, throw the totes back, the empty totes back.
Do you think Iola still needs twice a week trash pickup?
For some people, yeah. I use it once a week, sometimes once every other week, but I live by myself. But you take a family of 4 or so, I see some of my neighbors, they've got 2 to 3 cans out there both days. Yeah. Now, if we had a way of doing it, and we asked the people to sort it. I know my sister lived in Olathe. She had 2 trash cans, but one was blue, which was trash. Green was
for recyclables.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were picked up on different days. Well, if we were going to do that, you would have to have 2 trash trucks, because you would have one to pick up the trash with, and then on Tuesdays, and then on Fridays, the recycling truck would come around, which would have to be a different truck, because you don't want the recycles mixed in with your, the old grungy trash, stuff. I mean, unless you washed it out every night.
Got 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
Do you think Iola still needs wards for its city council?
Sometimes I do, in a sense that it gets people from that area. But I think if we could knock it down to 2 wards, maybe use like Cottonwood, or do a study on where most of your people, live, or maybe use Lincoln.
Yeah, north and south, or east and
or
west.
You're right.
Because Iola City Council, and we've talked and covered it a lot. You've always had this problem where you just don't have enough people running.
Yeah.
And then you have people where there's nobody's either it's just a write-in campaign or somebody's running unopposed. And there are people in this town, I think, who
10 years ago when I first got on, Sandy Zorns didn't run again. And I did a write-in campaign and won by 12 votes. I just had 12 people vote for me and I got it. And I've never forgiven them for it either.
My last question for you is, you are a walker. You take a lot of walks. So what are some of your favorite walks around Iola? The ones you enjoy the most?
Any of them and all of them. My late wife, some people would ask her, why does he walk so much? And she says, because that's the only peace and quiet I get, But I've walked to Humboldt. I've walked the lake. I've walked almost every street in this town. And it's kind of informative because people will see me out and they'll stop and talk with me and I get to see.
Do you ever just go like this and pretend you don't see them?
No, when I worked out at Gates, I worked with a gal that was like that because we would go take a break, and on the way back, she would look down at the floor and walk fast. And I said, why do you do that? And she says, because if I'm looking down, I don't see them when they wave at me or holler at me, so they can't bother me. And I said, well, I like them, when they holler, so I can help them with the problem, and I enjoy it. And that's another thing, if somebody calls me or if I see them out of Walmart or out on the street, I'm not asking them what ward they live in. Mm-hmm. I'm going to, I'll take it and I'll run with it.
No matter what part of town they're from.
No matter, so, and we've got, there's some places, some sidewalks that need to be replaced. And there's things that I see out there that I'll notify Corey or Matt about, or if I can't get hold of them, I know the department heads now. And I'll call them, like I found one of the street lights up here on the square where the box on the side was, the cover was off of it and electric wires were hanging out. Well, I didn't want anybody messing around with that. So I, hollered at, the electric guy's Mike and told him about it. So he got a crew up there and got the plate put back on. How it came off, I don't know. But, I like to let them know.
Well, thank you very much for coming. Thanks for doing this. I know you were a little bit hesitant to want to, but
this has been fun, really.
I appreciate your time and I appreciate your service to our city and our community. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you too. It's been enlightening.
Good.